diabetes is a lifestyle condition. Autoimmune, you have basically two types, probably three. Type 1, which is what you call insulin-dependent diabetes. Type 2 is non-insulin diabetes. 90% of all diabetes, type 2. Type 2. Then you're going to end up with what you call gestation diabetes. Baby, mother womb carrying a baby, and therefore derive with nutrients, etc. So anyway, let's deal with those two, type 1, type 2. Now, diabetes is a lifestyle condition. And as you mentioned, that to demystify the whole concept that disease is old folks' problem. Disease is not an old folks' problem. It goes back to the soil again. If the parent of the child is not sustaining their body with right nutrition, that's going to be passed on to the offspring. So diabetes is a lifestyle. Now, you said, what can foods do? Food is very important, it's vital, but we do have a whole lifestyle program on it. Nutrition-wise, diabetes is a result of low fiber food. When the food is devoid of fiber, case in point, as I mentioned, corn. You got a whole corn. When we strip the corn of its bran, its germ, endosperm, we extract it. Then we come with a white flour. Whole grain bread, we do the same thing. Fast foods, devoid, where fast food is fast because it requires nothing to cook and it fastly assimilated. It gives you a burst of energy. It's not time release. So diet is an essential component in preventing diabetes, even reversing diabetes. So those fats, carbohydrates, and proteins must be found in whole foods. Now, I know the listening audience is not into all plant-based diets, so therefore there's always a progressive step. But let me just say this, all your whole food, all your vegetables, green leafy vegetables, unadulterated, contains the component. All your whole grains, millet, amaranth, brown rice, oats, barley, all contain whole grains, fiber, protein. You have some fruits, all your stone fruits, your mangoes, all your fruits contain all these components. Now, you'll find that in all your animal products, which contains no fiber, animal products contain no fiber, no vitamin A, no vitamin C, no vitamin E, but it's high in cholesterol, high in fat. So when we deal with diabetes, we're dealing with what we call insulin receptors that on, say the palm of my hand is a cell, my fingers are the receptors. So you have what you call insulin. Insulin is a key that takes the glucose out of the blood, unlocks these receptors so that glucose can pass into the cell to provide us with the fuel we need. You get what I'm saying? So these receptors in diabetes, especially diabetes type 2, they become clogged up. They become clogged up. So therefore you cannot get the glucose in there. They clogged up. Why are they clogged up? Fats, cholesterol. These things clogs it up. There's other components. Poor nutrition, food that does not contain fiber. Now, think about your house. You have a broom, don't you? You sweep it, all right? As my wife would say, fiber is the broom of our body. It keeps things clean. It keeps dirt from accumulating. It keeps the fat from accumulating. So we got to have fiber in the diet. That's number one. That comes from food that contains fiber. So the parent needs to understand, now what food contains fiber? And so when you do your little research, all your whole grain foods, all your vegetables, all your fruit contain fiber. Meat contains no fiber. So that means I got to decrease my animal intake and increase my plant-based intake. And that's where it comes from. And then we talked about regularity, the time we eat. There's in the book of Ecclesiastes, the Old Testament said there's a time and season for everything. There's a time to eat, time to sleep. So we have to have breakfast, lunch, supper. It has to be regular. And so the type of foods we eat maintain what we call our sugar level. So if we're not eating breakfast in the morning, you're going to drop. Diabetes, like any other disease, is not categorized as an old age disease. We find that, as I mentioned earlier, the health of the cells is very important. Like I said, diabetes is a disease of cells, and we find that those cell receptors are being clogged up of fats and cholesterol. That does not take place in old age. That begins in the very beginning of our life, how we live, how we eat, our exercise. So babies are now in America, we find diabetes is becoming the third leading cause of disease and is impacting adolescents and pre-adolescents. We find that even body weight is contributing because of the foods we're eating. And so no disease is an old age disease, except you might find, which we might not be talking about, Alzheimer's, dementia, but remember, they manifest themselves at a later stage. Now there's a principle before I conclude. Now, if you heard of the concept, you reap what you sow, all right, so that's found in the Bible, Galatians chapter 6, verse 6 and 7. So you reap what you sow, and the reaping is greater than the sowing. You get? If I sow a kernel of corn, put in the ground, I'm going to reap ears. You got it? Now the third principle is that the reaping is not immediately. Did you get that? So when a person has been clinically diagnosed with diabetes in a later age, they did not just get diabetes at that point. It's been coming. So we said we get in old age, 40 and 30, and we've been planting the seed from the infant stage, adolescent stage, teenage stage, adult stage, because of our lifestyle. So diabetes is not an old man, old woman disease. Disease does not have an age.
We have found that even all over the world, diabetes is coming to be the third leading killer. So Kenya is just part of the plan. So we believe that the diet plays an important part, simply because when we look at that, we have to have, if you're a diabetic, you have 3, 5, some people have 7 meals a day. And we want to take you back to when we think of preventive. When we look at what builds blood, it's the food choices that we make. I usually tell people we're digging our graves with our teeth, because when we look at the foods that we're eating, they're all stripped, they're all refined things, and they create a disposition for these conditions that we're suffering with. When we look at food, food builds blood, blood builds cells, cells builds tissues. Now when we look at a diabetic's diet, they're eating a lot of high fat, they're eating lots of protein, they're eating a lot of refined starches, which is producing the problem. I believe that the fiber is most vital when we're dealing especially with diabetes, because if a person is eating food that is with fiber, they don't have to eat 5 to 7 meals a day. The blood will pump the glucose into the cells like they need, and when the blood sugar starts to drop, the fiber will produce that glucose that will sustain that blood sugar. So if they do that, then they can go longer than an hour or 2 hours. They can go at least almost 5 hours between their meals. They don't have to have a snack. They don't have to, have 2 or 3 snacks so that they can be able to keep their sugar level up. So the key is the fiber in the food. So what foods are those? Those are grains. A lot of times we stay away from grains because we say, oh, they're going to make me fat. but it's the fiber, the sustained energy that that fiber gives that's going to be able to help the blood sugar be stabilized over a longer period of time. So whole grains, instead of them eating, I find that since I've been here in Kenya, people eat white rice a lot because it's nice, it's fluffy. Well, you can eat the brown rice and it can be fluffy as well. I was showing in the cooking class demonstration that we had how to be able to take the brown rice and cook it where it's fluffy as well. So you can be able to get the fiber from there. We had a time where we were in, I think it was Malaysia, and they ate a lot of white rice over there. We found that people could eat 5 bowls of white rice and only 2 bowls of brown rice. So they didn't want the brown rice because they say they feel they're full as a result of having 5 as opposed to 2. So we want to encourage the people to use more whole grains, not only brown rice, but you have barley, you have millet, which usually is very good. So those are things that I find. Another thing with diabetes, and that is the amount of fat. We like to go to these fast food restaurants because the fat makes the food taste so lovely. So the more fat, then that is going to clog those receptor sites that my husband talked about. And then another thing that clogs them, that is what we're eating is going in and not coming out. And what does that mean? That means toxins are building up because I'm eating these 5 meals a day and I'm only having 1 or no movement a day. And that bowel movement, so that will clog those cell receptor sites as well. And then we're not drinking enough water. That helps to keep the body clean. And if we would do those things, that would help in the diabetes, to prevent diabetes, making a healthy choices from what we have available.